Kevin at Epic Gardening started his gardening journey with hydroponics. I started mine with actually planted aquaria. Both methods are examples of growing without soil. But I think for most of us, soil is the heart of a garden. And now that I'm in a proper garden, it's the heart of mine too. Welcome back, casual gardeners. This is part 4 of the Frequently Asked Questions series. Today we're answering the question, what kind of soil should I use? I didn't have a perfect shirt for that topic because I don't have any soil colored shirts. I have plenty of soil covered shirts, but I just decided to wear this because if we are growing in good soil, our plants should look green and vibrant. It's a stretch. By the end of this video, you should know what soil actually is, why not all soil is the same, what kind of soil to use for garden beds, raised beds, and containers, and how to stop wasting your money on products you don't need. But before we get started, why don't you go ahead and hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed to my channel so you don't miss any of the Frequently Asked Questions video series. It's going to be a long one. Soil isn't just dirt. It's a complex web of interacting living things that are all supporting each other. Soil grows and changes and adapts to suit its environment. If we treat our soil like it's not a living thing, it's a lot more likely to wind up being not a living thing. The main component of soil is inorganic material. We're talking silt, clay, or sand. Most healthy soils are between 45% and 50% inorganic material. Next, we have organic matter, which comprises 5 to 15% of the soil. Now, your organic matter can consist of decaying things that were once alive but no longer are, but it also includes living things like fungi, bacteria, insects, and annelids squirming their way all over the place and breaking stuff down to make it available for your plants. Now, if you remember your math from primary school, you've probably noticed that we're not at 100%. I've only described 50 to 65% of what soil is. And that's because the remaining 35 to 50% of our soil isn't. It's empty space. Healthy soil needs to be at least 35 to 50% empty space. And that empty space needs to be filled with, preferably in alternation, air and water. Without those air and water spaces in the soil, you're not going to be able to support plant life, and that's really what compacted soil is. Your native soil, the stuff that you go out and find when you decide, I'm going to be a gardener, should be composed of one of 3 soil types. You've either got sandy soil, clay soil, or loamy soil. Sandy soil drains quickly. It doesn't hold on to nutrients well, but the bright side is it does warm up a little bit faster in the spring because it's full of empty space. Clay soil is kind of the opposite of sandy soil. It's going to hold on tight to water and nutrients, but it's also prone to compaction, losing those empty spaces that we really need in healthy soil. So if you're growing in sandy soil, you're going to need to add water and nutrients a lot more often. And if you're growing in clay soil, you're going to have to work your soil a lot more often to keep it open and airy, just to keep on supporting growth. Loamy soil is the holy grail of soil. I had it in my last garden and I didn't even know how lucky I was. So it does a really great job holding water, but it also doesn't compact. Those open, airy spaces are just there. It's light and it's fluffy. It holds on to nutrients well. And because loamy soil tends to be full of organic matter, it supports a lot of happy little critters that help support our gardens. If you're growing in loamy soil, you've hit the jackpot. But even if you're growing in loamy soil, you're still going to have to keep adding a steady supply of organic matter to keep it that way. Most gardeners who are currently growing in loamy soil didn't start out with it. They either started out with sandy or clay soil, and over time, through the frequent addition of organic matter and probably a lot of elbow grease, they made their loamy soil. So far, we've been focusing on native or natural soils, but those are not our only options. So let's talk about what to use and when. So if you're growing in an in-ground garden bed, that is by definition going to use your native soil. That is the OG type of gardening. You are participating in a tradition that stretches back over 10,000 years. This is also the cheapest way to garden because you don't have to build anything and you don't have to cart any ingredients in. It's just you and the native soil and some seeds and preferably some water. But there's a really good chance that you're not starting out with perfect soil. You've either got sandy soil or clay soil. You can improve your native soil by adding compost, aged manure, or leaf mold. These are all really great sources of that organic material, and they will in turn support populations of creepy crawlies that, whether you like them or not, you're gonna need them. Having that organic matter added to your soil, it will also, regardless of your soil type, improve your drainage profile. So if you've got sandy soil, that organic matter is going to soak up water like a sponge and help hold on to that water and the nutrients that you add to your soil. If you have clay soil, the organic matter that you add helps form a thing called soil aggregates, which are little balls of clay and sand and sticks and dead stuff. And those soil aggregates have a much looser texture and help create air spaces in your soil and prevent compaction. So either type of soil type will benefit from the addition of organic matter. It's magic. So if you're gardening in raised beds, you could choose to operate that like an in-ground bed, but raised. You could fill your raised bed entirely with native soil. Now, when I'm filling my raised beds, I like to do about a 50% mixture of topsoil with 50% compost to start out. That is a lot of compost, so it's just to start out. You never want to add that much compost at any other time in the life of your garden bed. Because compost is so fluffy, it doesn't really, it's not really 50% by mass. You're going to see a lot of that packing down and breaking down over time. So it's still going to be mostly inorganic material after things have worked out. If your native soil is clay soil, like mine, you may choose to add something like perlite to help improve aeration and prevent compaction over time. That is 100% optional, and if you're adding compost, it'll do a lot of the same job. Some raised bed gardeners choose to do a method called square foot gardening. That doesn't use any native soil at all. You're going to be using something called Mel's Mix, and that is an entirely synthetic soil, and you're going to wind up needing to add nutrients back in pretty frequently because they're going to be lost over time. Mel's Mix is comprised of about 1/3 peat moss or coco coir, 1/3 coarse vermiculite, and 1/3 blended organic compost. So those 3/3 altogether get you to Mel's Mix. I prefer to use amended native soil with compost just because it feels more alive. I've got a soil weirdness thing. I love soil, but for your garden, it's really going to come down to what you prefer. Don't let me bully you into growing in soil. Big box stores can have a wide variety of bagged soils. So let's talk about what the main bagged soil types are and how you might want to use them in your garden. So potting mix or potting soil contains no native soil. It is formulated just to be used in container growing. They're about the same. Potting mix is potting soil. They're for pots. You can also sift those if you want to and use them for seed starting. Garden soil is intended to be mixed with native soil in the garden. It is not a complete product. I learned that the hard way when I filled a half-barrel container with garden soil in my last garden, and I learned that it was mostly bark. It was bad. It was very bad. I had to add soil back into that to get my rhubarb that I was growing in there to be okay. Luckily, rhubarb is pretty bulletproof, and it was fine. Topsoil is, pun intended, a mixed bag. So the idea of topsoil is that you're taking the top few inches of soil off of the landscape, and these are the most fertile few inches of the soil, and then you're taking them and adding them to your garden, and presumably that's going to be good stuff. But a lot of what we currently get as bagged topsoil actually comes from construction sites. They just scrape the top off, possibly up to a foot deep, off of the construction site, and that's what you get. So topsoil often isn't ideal. It's mass that you can use, but you're going to want to mix it with a lot of organic matter to wind up with something that's actually good to grow in. So if you buy topsoil and you toss it in your garden, don't expect great results right away. You're going to have to work with it. Compost, bagged or otherwise, is mostly organic matter that has been broken down over time and is full of a balanced mix of nutrients and a really great soil amendment. It is my favorite soil amendment. I think it's awesome. Whether you're adding it to clay or sandy soil or even loamy soil, you're going to get some benefit from consistently adding that compost into your system. The downside of compost is that because it consists of broken down organic material, the salts from that stuff can get concentrated, especially if it contains some portion of composted manure. Manure is salty stuff, especially if it's chicken manure. So you want to be careful in a climate like mine that is relatively arid, that you're not adding more than an inch or two of compost a year, because you can wind up with salt building up in your soil and that'll wreck your garden. In rainier climates, go to town. Just have a compost party. Sounds fun. Gardeners are more likely to add too many soil amendments than too few soil amendments. Good soil takes time to build, and you will be happier and wealthier if you just take that time and add a little bit of stuff at a time and pay attention to your soil and what it needs. All most native soils are going to need is compost, mulch, and time. Not time the plant, I mean like time the thing the clock measures. But what about the other amendments? What are they for? Let's go through some of them. Not all of them, there are too many. So if you want to aerate your soil, you got options. You can do perlite, vermiculite, biochar, peat moss, coconut coir, gypsum, bark chips, and probably a lot more. If you're very brave or very foolish and you want to lower your soil pH, you can use elemental sulfur or aluminum sulfate. If you need to raise your soil pH, which I will never need to do, just add lime. Most gardeners don't need to do it, but when I was living in Western Oregon, where it's basically a temperate rainforest, it's something people had to do to keep their lawns growing okay. If you need to add calcium to your soil, which I will also never need to do, you can add lime, you can add gypsum, or you can add bone meal, which is also a pretty good source of phosphorus, which I will also never need. Oh, also there is wood ash. Wood ash tends to have a higher concentration of calcium and phosphate than the wood did, because calcium and phosphorus are metals that aren't lost in the smoke. So you can wind up with a bunch of calcium and phosphorus in your wood ash. It'll also spike your pH though, so be careful. If you are concerned about your soil and you live in the United States, the number one very first thing you should do is collect a soil sample according to their directions and send it to an agricultural college or a extension program at a land-grant university. Every state in the United States has one, and they should offer soil analysis services. If you're in Canada, most provinces will have similar places that provide similar services. Unfortunately, I am pretty North America centric, and I don't know what to tell you if you're somewhere else. Check to see who provides those services. Getting your soil analyzed will tell you what kind of soil you have, what minerals and nutrients are over or under abundant, and usually they'll give you advice on how to lock your soil into where you really want it to be to grow stuff. So they'll tell you what to add or sometimes what to definitely not add. Soil analysis aside, as long as water is soaking in instead of running off and it's not running through, and as long as your plant roots are penetrating your soil easily, your soil is probably fine to grow in, and you can just calm down, okay? Just use your soil. It feels like there are a lot of gardeners out there with soil envy. We're looking at soil that's been worked with for a lot more years than our garden and wishing our gardens could be there too. And that's okay. I do it too. I totally feel you on this. But the way to get that soil is to just take our time and work with what we've got. There is no magic bullet that will get you there instantly, and anyone who's trying to sell you that magic bullet probably shouldn't be trusted. Like this video if you found it entertaining or useful, or preferably both. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel. As I mentioned earlier, we are just getting started in the Frequently Asked Questions series. You should also subscribe if you want to see if this lettuce is going to last all winter long in my greenhouse in Zone 6. It's kind of a fun thing to find out. I'm looking forward to finding out too. Thank you so much for joining me here in my garden. I hope you have a wonderful time in your own.